Cardinals Corner from Arizona Sports with Tyler Drake and Erik Ruby.
For the third time in less than a week, hello and welcome into another edition of Cardinals Corner. And I've got my man, Arizona Sports Cardinals reporter Tyler Drake, calling in via Teams today. It's a new setup. I am Erik Ruby, and the Cardinals have made some quarterback decisions, some moves, and we had to jump right back into it. Tyler, how you doing, my friend?
It is a busy Monday, to say the least, my friend. I'm glad we could find some time to do this pod because I feel like it's definitely necessary. Wild day, that is for sure. You want to give them the old rundown of what happened?
Yeah, so it all started with initial reports from NFL Network's Ian Rappaport that said the Arizona Cardinals plan to start the season with Kyler Murray on the PUP list, the physically unable to perform list, which means he would have to miss a minimum of 4 games if he starts the season on that list. Then, later in the day, there was reports and then confirmation that the Cardinals were cutting veteran quarterback Colt McCoy, which came as simultaneously a shock and not a shock, right, Tyler? Like, it was two things at once.
Yeah. And first with the Murray thing. I think we both, on the last pod, we both said that was going to happen from the Dobbs trade. When that went down, that was one of the first things that came into my mind was he's starting on the PUP. There was just too many quarterbacks at that point. Even with Colt getting cut, so then you move over to Colt. Yeah, it was – honestly, I was more surprised. I don't know, man. I think I was more surprised with this one just a little bit more than the Isaiah Simmons trade. But just the fact that it was like, boom, boom, we're done, see you later, it was that was pretty wild. And it just seems like – it was just yet another message that this team is sending that, hey, if you aren't playing to what we need, we're going to go out there and try to fix it. Yeah. So, and honestly, though, we kind of said, we got to this point last pod, too. We even talked about his potential departure at some point in the season. I don't think we realized it was going to be before the season, but we were even just talking about if he should be the week 1 starter last pod. So, for it to actually come to fruition is really wild. I think that part I'm more surprised.
Yeah, the one thing that I'm not surprised about at all is the fact that they believe Colt McCoy was not a good enough quarterback to start an NFL game. It's what we all saw, right? All of the arguments. And I mentioned
just how just really crazy.
We had a little technical difficulty there. Tyler dropped in, dropped out. But that's okay, because we're going to keep it rolling here. No, it's okay, Tyler. It's not your fault, even though I'm going to blame you. It's not your fault. But basically, you said that it was a surprise that it happened this early. And yes and no for me, because one thing that is not surprising is that the Arizona Cardinals, they woke up and they said, Colt McCoy is not a good enough quarterback to play in an NFL game. Because I remember kind of calling you out on this last episode, which we did after the Cardinals' preseason victory against the Vikings, where we were talking about who should be the week 1 starter, Clayton Tune, Josh Dobbs, Colt McCoy. And you made an argument for Colt McCoy. But in that argument was not a single point, not a single one, that mentioned him being better at football than any of the other options. Honestly, even David Blau, who is still around.
He could be the third quarterback, really.
Dude, by all we know, he could be the starter week 1. It's not going to happen, but we don't know anything. We don't know anything. And that's
Ian very much made it seem like it was going to be a Dobbs and Tune race.
No,
and Two-man, I said McCoy, but at the same time, I said it with the caveat of how fast can Dobbs pick up the system. If Dobbs can hurry up and pick up the system and really know it and is comfortable, then he was right there more in the running to get that starting nod. But yeah, I'll be honest, I still thought Colt should have been the guy just based on what we saw through. He was the guy getting first team reps. Should he have started the whole season? No way. But should he have at least started the season opener? That's what I thought. But now you can tell that they want to see somebody really take this job and run with it.
From the moment, in my opinion, that he was traded to the Arizona Cardinals, Josh Dobbs was your week 1 starter.
Yeah. You don't trade a 5th rounder unless you're gonna use them. That's a good point. Yeah.
And it's not, and I know this is not like a fresh take. I'm not revealing any information that a lot of people don't know, but in case somebody doesn't know, somebody's not as plugged in as Tyler Drake, Arizona Sports Cardinals reporter, Drew Petzing was coaching the Browns quarterbacks when Josh Dobbs was a Browns quarterback.
And so was Israel Wolford, who was the quarterback still. Yep.
So this is not like Dobbs is going to be coming in and learning an offense that he has never been a part of before. In fact, I'm sure all of these basic building blocks that you're supposed to get down in preseason while you're learning a new system, while Colt McCoy was learning a new system, while Clayton Tune was learning his first system, it was something that Dobbs was already a part of. And he's smart. Everybody wants to talk about the off-the-field smarts. Fine. But that does translate to being able to at least study and retain information. And if that's what your worry is with Josh Dobbs, I don't know why you would be worrying about that. We all talk about how not useful preseason is, right? And how preseason games, all of that. You're going to give a genius 2 weeks with no expectations to go and relearn an offense he already learned, working with people he already worked with. It's gonna be fine. Like, he's not gonna go out there and throw for 400 yards week 1, but it's going to be fine. And he's the best option. Yeah, he's a journeyman. He's been on a couple different teams. All those teams signed him because he had to play, and he did play, and he held his own.
Gann even said they looked at him earlier in the offseason and couldn't sign him. So they've already seen what he can do. They've liked what he can do from just based on his resume. So, yeah, and it's interesting how the opportunity seemed to present itself after the guy was basically the number 2 in Cleveland. So it's not like they're getting some guy that was on the bottom of the depth chart. They're getting some guy that I think some teams really can see them taking over a starting role. It just depends how many games is that going to be. It's going to be at least a couple, probably at least a couple, because Kyler's going to be done till at least week 4, if that. I mean, it could be longer than that. So that's something you got to consider too.
Yeah.
And he brings a little bit of both, the best of both worlds. He gives you that veteran presence, even though he hasn't played a ton of games. He's been in the league a lot, and he gives you more running ability than what you would have got with Colt. So I think it's an upgrade for what they want to do. I think it's an upgrade for just the person that they want under center. And I think really now it's going to be gelling with the offensive line, running backs, wide receivers, and really getting on point with them to put himself in a spot, because Gannon, he's going to let him battle it out and see which one comes out for week 1.
Yeah, we're going to get into what Jonathan Gannon had to say at his press conference that you were at in just a couple of minutes. I do kind of want to go through one thing first when it comes to Dobbs, because as layers of this continue to unfold, right, as we're starting to get a clearer picture about this season, how they're operating, how they're viewing themselves, to me, this move to trade a 5th rounder for Dobbs, we mentioned it last week and we mentioned it over the weekend, is not a move done by a tanking team. You don't trade an asset from a draft that you very much have your eyes on, considering how much assets you've already acquired for said draft. You don't do that unless you're trying to make a move that will help you win football games. And that's not to say that there wasn't going to be a tanking look with Colt under center either. Because that's what a lot of people said. Oh, they're for sure tanking now. I mean, if they would have rolled him out there, people could have said that was easily a tank job too. If he played football, that to me would have signaled the fact that they were tanking.
Yeah.
This is the complete opposite. The fact that Colt McCoy is not on the roster shows you that Monty Ossenfort is not about that tank life, at least not to that level of extreme that maybe the Philadelphia 76ers are the only ones to attain, or the San Antonio. Like, I can't even think of people in football, because a lot of the times the teams at the bottom of football, it doesn't really seem like they're there on purpose. It just seems like they're there because they were bad. And if there's anything that it looks like Monty Ossenfort wants to avoid, it's looking back at this season and talking about how god-awful the Cardinals were. Yeah, sure. Maybe they don't win games, right? Maybe they don't go out there and put together a 10-win, an 8-win, a 5-win, a 4-win season maybe, right? Like all those are still possible.
Yeah.
But the optics of trotting out a should-be retired Colt McCoy, which is all due respect to him. Like, he's a fantastic mind. He's going to do great in media and coaching and whatever he wants to do. He was good for the Cardinals in his tenure here. He did his job. Fantastic career. Salute to you. It's over.
Hey, they're going to probably get a new puppy or dog soon if that is the case.
Yeah, he said his kid's got to learn how to clean the room first, though. And that don't just happen when he retires. But if they rolled him out there, that's a tanking move. Trading a 5th-round pick in its own right for a backup quarterback is not a tanking move. And then using said backup quarterback as your best option and starting him week 1, cutting the veteran that was assumed to be starting is not a tanking move. So, Tyler, my question to you is, are the Arizona Cardinals taking this season? Because it sure as hell doesn't seem so.
I think it's a competitive tanking. I don't know how you can.
I like it.
That's
competitive tanking.
I feel like that's what it is. It's like we still know who we are at the end of the day, but we still this is like if you're Monty Osford, this is your thinking. We still know who we are at the end of the day, but we still need to be competitive and take steps forward to show that this is the foundation that you want to build from. This is the team you want to come to. Like, if you just lay down flat and you know you're going to lose and you just want to lose, no one's going to want to come here next year. No one's going to want to do that. Like, you have to make this place desirable, and I've said it a million times. You got to try to be the Detroit Lions now. Like, you got to make that steady progress visible so that you can turn out to be a team that ends up having no primetime games to having the first game of the year against the defending Super Bowl champs. It's those things that you have to really focus on if you really want to turn things around, because it's not going to be an overnight. It's not going to happen overnight. It's going to be a process. But you still have to show some kind of competitiveness, because they've preached it all offseason too. This needs to be a competitive team, regardless of what they are. They need to be competitive. And I think this is another showing of, if you're not being competitive, I think that joint practice was a very clear indication that they needed to change things up. We saw 3 trades in Minnesota. That alone, I think, shows you, like, if you're not competitive, if you're not really with this team, you can go find somewhere else, because we need guys that are actually going to help move the needle, even if it's a little bit, help move the needle some way forward.
Yeah. You know, you're not wrong, Tyler, but I will say there's something shocking to my ears to hear the words, well, they just have to try to be like the Detroit Lions.
No, I know, right? I know.
But you're right. You're right, because that culture's turned around, and they didn't turn it around by winning a bunch of games when they weren't supposed to. They did it by losing a little bit and then slowly, inch by inch, game by game, turning heads. And the Cardinals are in the middle of a balancing act, and they've got something on their finger, right? And it's on both sides. And on one side, it's losing to get a top pick. And then on the other side, it's taking over a losing franchise and trying to change the culture from being a losing franchise. Well, how do you avoid dipping too far into the tank and losing that culture? But then also, at what point do you also get in your own way if you go too far the other way? And I'm not saying they have. Like, look, man, you break down this roster. We talk about these rooms or who can be cut or whatever, the competition inside of it. Like, this team on paper is not a good football team. And that's okay. They're not supposed to be. That's not what this year is supposed to be. However, you want to find a way to balance on your finger that team, getting everything you can out of them, so that when players talk to players, which they do, like, players talk to players on other teams, they've got friends, like all of that. And they say, man, tough year for y'all out in Arizona. What was it? 2 wins? 3 wins? 4 wins? How was that? Man, to be honest with you, like, the result wasn't there, but every day we showed up to work and the culture was great and Gannon was fantastic and Monty Ossenfort was clear with
building something there.
Right. They're building something there.
Yeah.
And Dobbs, I'm really not trying to get too far ahead of this, because at the end of the day, it's a quarterback you spent a 5th round pick on who's probably going to be a backup. But Dobbs, to me, is almost like that perfect level of quarterback to achieve that balance that, okay, I'm not going to have my players go out there and look at Colt McCoy throw a dud on a screen pass.
Yeah.
We're not going to start the season like that. That's not happening. We're not going to let these players think that something is going to be handed to them based off of what happened before and not what you're doing now. So I'm going to take a different route entirely, but also one that's not going to, like, Kyler Murray's not suiting up week one. You know what I mean? Like, you're not going out there and you're not putting somebody that's going to will you to a victory. And if he does, more power to Josh Dobbs.
Yeah. Yeah.
All right. So let's
100% agree.
Let's talk about Kyler. Because it's like semi-confirmed. I'm still going to use the word reportedly because it hasn't officially happened yet. But Kyler Murray, 99.9% likely to start the season on the physically unable to perform list. That means he will miss at minimum 4 games.
Yep.
Reported this morning. Gannon was asked about it. He said,
it was weird.
He was like, yeah, that or injured reserve, right? So,
but he didn't. He just said one of the lists, and it has the only other list. It could be his injured reserve, but I don't think you can come off PUP that quickly to be then put back on the IR. So basically, what would need to happen if they see him playing, I think this is how it works. From everything that I've put together, from some of the people I've talked to, is that if he were to go on the IR, like if they were able to move him from the PUP to the IR, they would first have to get him off the PUP onto the 53-man, then onto the IR. If that ever could happen, because if they put him on the IR right now, he misses the whole year, I believe. I think Pat Elflein is not playing the whole year because they put him on the IR before 53-man roster cuts. So I believe that the only option for me is he has to be on PUP. I think that's
unless
the only
there's a
option.
list we don't know about.
I guess, but I don't think it's possible for him to go on the IR, which is I think what everybody thinks he implied when he said that. So expect for it to be official that he goes on the PUP, I would assume soon, by tomorrow at least. And yeah, it's going to miss 4 games at least. That's at least. Remember we talked a long time ago. I put my money on week 8.
Yeah, that makes sense.
I'm still feeling good with week 8.
I have no idea what I put my money on. Week 8 sounds about right. But also, listen, man, I think if he was going to play in the first 5 or 6 weeks, I don't think they would put him on PUP.
No. But also, here's the other thing too, man. Once he comes off the PUP, he's still going to have to ramp up practice-wise. So that's going to take a couple more weeks too, I think. So don't expect him back anytime soon.
Right. And that's kind of the messaging with all of this, is that all that talk and that speculation about Kyler's going to try to be ready for week 1. Ooh, watch out. Kyler Murray might actually be able to. It was off-season chatter. We're less than 2 weeks away. If he was going to play in the first couple of weeks of the regular season, to be honest with you, we would probably know by now. We would probably know. And we don't. We don't even know what list he's officially going to be on. And if they do pull some trickery, if anybody's going to do it, I guess it'd be Monty Ossenfort to navigate how to get to one list and the other. But until he gets put on that list, you kind of got to assume that either is possible. And then once that happens, we are still not any closer to getting an answer about this. So the quarterback room, it's Dobbs or it's Tune. That's the reality of the way that it is for this Cardinals season. And I hope we can look back and laugh about it one day, because Dobbs versus Tune, who's going to be the Cardinals starting quarterback week 1? If at the end game it's all turned around and Monty does what Monty does and JG does what JG does, and we're looking back 3 to 4 years from now at a playoff spot and saying, wow, remember when it was McCoy, Tune, Dobbs?
But it'll be an important part of that foundation building. That'll be the craziest thing. This part could very well be a huge part of the turnaround. This plus the Isaiah trade, all of this little nugget of just trades and acquisitions right now could really be something we all look back on and be like, whoa, this was a bigger deal than we all thought it would be.
You see Isaiah play? You see him play for the Giants?
I did not see him play. I saw some highlights, but I didn't. I guess not much highlights. I saw one play.
The highlight of him missing a sack and everybody going, ooh, look how close Isaiah Simmons got to a sack. Or how about this? I heard some audio from him today. Oh, I don't have any problem playing linebacker. I love to play linebacker. I'll play linebacker for Wink Martindale. He hated it here, dude. There's no chance that he was enjoying himself. You don't go from handpicking your position, saying I will only play this if I'm comfortable, to joining a completely new scheme 2 weeks before the season starts and being like, yeah, I'll play anywhere for you. I would love to. That's such a funny, it's such a funny switch to me. And if anything, it just confirms more like, yeah, it was for the best. It was for the best to move on. All right. Speaking of moving on, Cardinals continuing to inch closer to roster cuts. They made a couple today. Cut down days officially tomorrow. We'll keep our eyes out for any names that maybe the Cardinals could grab. But instead of getting into the nitty-gritty, because that's a little bit mundane, what positions do you see the Cardinals possibly looking to add once other teams make cuts? And I mean, I guess if you have any specific players on the Cardinals or off to watch in the next coming days, you can give it. But it's the back end of the roster, man. Not many difference makers. Yeah, no, I think just couple spots. Offensive line, I think just with Dennis Daly, the unknown with Dennis Daly and John Gaines. Gannon told us today that they're still going through the medicals of them, so still evaluating them. So nothing new there to report. They were both injured in the preseason finale. So maybe look at that spot. Cornerback. Actually, no, sorry. Maybe cornerback, but I would think safety is going to be somewhere they look, just because I think there's going to be a name or two out there that might be intriguing. Oh, man. Maybe D-line, but I think they like who they have right now in the room. So I guess the two that I would watch, O-line and safety for me right now. Those would be the two that I'm watching for tomorrow. Yeah, the secondary in general, it's the same as last year. Like you need bodies in there. And now losing Isaiah Simmons, well, I don't think is a bad thing. You still need somebody to play there. Yeah. You lost somebody. You got to add there. O-line, you can never have enough O-line. Never, ever, 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 ever. Especially when the whole reason we're talking about McCoy, Dobbs, Tune is because the quarterback that should be starting couldn't be protected. So keep taking shots at offensive line. If you want to follow along as cut days happen, and who knows who the quarterback's going to be week one. It might not even be somebody on the roster at this point. Right. Like, I'm just along for the ride, Tyler.
Well, that's the thing, man. I mean, when was the last time a team has gone out, signed a guy who did not take one snap for them, didn't go through training camp with them, and ends up starting the first week? Yeah. Like any game snaps. That's crazy. It's insane. Plus, real quick, I was about to wrap it up, but real quick, Gannon saying he's not going to name a starter for week one because it gives him a competitive advantage, but that he already has an idea about who it's going to be. To me, that means I think it's Dobbs. I think so, yeah. My money's on Dobbs. I think everybody's money's on Dobbs right now. What a change. You never know what's going to happen in the NFL, but when stuff does happen, you better be following at TDrake4. That's the number 4, TDrake4 Sports. You know what? Go ahead and turn those notifications on. Yeah. Get saucy with it. Get saucy. Get the new era notes. Get that video fresh on your timeline. Get notified as soon as that happens. Of course, all of Tyler's great work. Tyler's podcasting for you. He's recording videos for you. He's writing for you. He's basically doing everything. He's texting me my lines to say during the show. It's everything. This man you messed up that last one. I'm sorry. I was thrown off by your call dropping in the middle of this episode and then coming back in uninvited. It was so rude of you, Tyler. But anyway, follow him at TDrake4 Sports. You can follow myself at Erik with a K, Ruby, ERIKRUBY. Follow the show at AZ Cards Corner. Shout out to everybody at Arizona Sports that makes this whole thing go. And make sure you download on the Apple Store, on Spotify, on the Arizona Sports app, wherever you listen to podcasts, download, rate 5 stars, all of that. We appreciate it. Check out our video as well. This one's going to be up on YouTube. That's going to be fantastic. We've been doing more of that. And we don't know who the starting quarterback is going to be week one, but we know we have a lot of work to do before we get there. So until then, enjoy football. We'll talk to you guys next time.